Hi, my name's Phil and I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss yet another leaked government assessment of the impact of a no-deal Brexit. But first, if you find yourself enjoying this video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, Operation Yellowhammer this time, which is Whitehall's secret no-deal Brexit preparations, have been leaked to the public via the Times newspaper. It is believed to have been leaked by a former minister, but it could just easily have been leaked by Whitehall itself. Michael Gove sought to play down the significance of the leaked report by saying that it was a worst-case scenario, but it is being reported by a senior official in Whitehall that it is the expected results of a no-deal Brexit, not the worst case at all. There are aspects of the report that shed new light onto certain areas, which is why I'm wanting to discuss it today, but there are also other aspects that are entirely consistent with the previous leaks. This certainly adds credence to believing that it is the expected results and not at all a worst case scenario. The report notes not only the likely consequences, but also what the government is doing about it. The Times reports that it is the most comprehensive assessment of our readiness for a no-deal Brexit yet. So I'd like to take the main points one by one. This is the government's official understanding of the results of a no-deal Brexit. It notes that the public and businesses are largely unprepared for no deal, and the EU exit fatigue has hampered contingency planning. Now, it's certainly no surprise that people are largely unprepared. In an effort to suppress panic about a no-deal Brexit, both May's and Johnson's government have failed to communicate to the public and businesses. Sure, there are pages on government websites to get information, but they aren't drawing attention to them. You have to know that they're there and go and look. As for exit fatigue, the constant uncertainty has probably caused members of the public and smaller businesses to have put off any preparations, as they're probably more effort than seems worth it. Especially understandable given that the government keeps saying by equal measures that there will be a deal, but if there isn't, then it'll be fine. So it's like, oh, I don't need to do anything then. The report naturally states that a hard border will return to Ireland. It doesn't say immediately, but it does note that the current plans to manage the border within Ireland are unsustainable. It notes that there is likely to be protests, road blockages and direct action. In other words, murders and other acts of terrorism. This has been known by anyone who wants to open their eyes for some time, of course. If the government actually had a plan for the border within Ireland, then it would already have been implemented. In reality, not only has nothing been implemented, but there are no details about what they intend to implement. And I'll also remind people that Section 10 of the European Union Withdrawal Act requires by law that the government implement measures at the border before we exit the EU. To do so afterwards would be illegal. The report notes that there are likely to be months of border delays and that these logjams will cause problems with fuel distribution across the UK, but especially in London and the South East. I think it's ironic that the South East of England, the part of the UK primarily responsible for both the government and the Brexit plague they unleashed, will see some of the most severe Brexit impacts, certainly outside Ireland anyway. It also notes that between 50 and 85% of lorries using the main channel crossings may not be ready for French customs and could be delayed by up to 2.5 days. Now, I have to say that at least is a better prospect than looked likely half a year ago, but even then it's death for the just-in-time supply chain. It will mean a lot of lost business for British companies, and that's not even taking tariffs and quotas into account. But this is another example of a lack of information getting out there. What this report is alluding to is that those lorries will not know how to use the new procedures. The government needs to urgently start training people if it is at least to diminish the worst effects of their insane plan. It also says there will be significant disruption at ports, which will last up to 3 months, after which the flow of traffic will get up to 50 to 70% of the current rate. So let's examine that for a minute. There will be up to 3 months of less than half the current flow of traffic at ports. That in itself is ruinous, but the same report also said that after 3 months it will be at best up to 70% of the current rate. So we won't even be able to get back up to normal traffic flow months later, let alone a day later. I'd also point out that several of the statements in this report refer to months of major disruption. Now, I have to say I cannot believe that the public will allow the government to keep us on this path for that length of time. Yes, we're talking about lorries and ports and boats, but what are those ships and lorries carrying? Food and medicines. the wider public simply won't stand by and continue to be told by the government to be patient. The current situation is that millions of people around the UK are being told that it will all be fine. Even now, with the leak of this report, the government are saying that it's the worst case scenario, not what will actually happen. So when it does happen, there will be a shock to the wider public. All the things that they were told were Project Fear will be undeniable reality. Are they really going to be swayed, seriously, by the same media and the same politicians who told them that? If they do, then we deserve to sink beneath the waves. But speaking of food and medicine, as with other such leaked reports, Operation Yellowhammer notes that there will be severe extended delays on some medicines as we get 75% of them from the main channel crossings. The availability of fresh food will also be reduced and the prices will rise. It notes that this will hit vulnerable groups. So as I was talking about last week, it's the poorest in society that will be hurt badly by this. One new revelation, or at least new to me, but I suppose predictable, was that reducing import tariffs on fuel to 0%, which is the government's plan, will mean the closure of 2 UK oil refineries and the loss of another 2,000 jobs. The report says that this will lead to widespread strike action and disruptions to fuel availability. Now, I remember the issues with fuel availability a bit over 15 years ago, I think, and this one would surely be worse, not just in terms of severity, but because it will be combined with a whole host of other deprivations, and also because it will be directly attributable to a government that carried out this action against the will of Parliament, having told the public that it would all be fine. I cannot imagine the public backlash to this. It's one thing for millions of people to believe in unicorns, but once they can't get insulin or other medicines for themselves or their loved ones, when they see the impact on the supermarket shelves, and when they can't even get to work because they can't fill the cars up with petrol, then I think people will have to start to take a very different view. But it doesn't end there. The report also thinks that 282 fishing vessels will be sailing in British waters illegally the day after Brexit. Now that is an oddly specific number, and I didn't see mention of up to 282 as perhaps the number that are normally active in the area. I already discussed the lack of capacity to stop this if it turns out to be true though. I have to say it's the least of my personal worries though. The report says that there will be protests across the UK. Well, if they think that the effects are going to be lasting long term, then no kidding. But it notes that this is going to take significant police resources to deal with it. Just as well the Conservative government didn't cut those 21,000 police jobs then. Oh wait, oops. Finally, they said there would be increased costs for social care, with smaller providers affected more quickly than larger ones, and that Gibraltar would face delays of more than 4 hours at the border with Spain, completely knackering their economy. It was reported that the leak of Yellowhammer is linked to annoyance in Whitehall that the government isn't being open about the impact of a no-deal Brexit and, of course, the preparations. That is what's making those few preparations all but useless. What's the point in having a plan if you don't tell people what it is? They can't carry it out. So that's the latest from the most up-to-date government impact assessment for a no-deal Brexit. I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details, and until next time, I'll see you later.